financial system is consumed with all of these derivatives and credit default swaps, not even your normal banking procedures. How do you see this in terms of your sense of its self-inflicted apocalypse of finance capital?
Well, I argue that one of the functions of a capitalist state is to defend capitalism from itself, to defend capitalism from the capitalists. It was Marx, dare we mention him? I hear he's coming back in style. It was Marx who said one capitalist will kill many other capitalists. That the system it begins to consume itself. We see that with Bernard Madoff and the like. And it's not merely because of a number of wicked personalities, because these personalities are brought to the fore. Those are the people who get the rewards. Those are the people who, yes, and what we need are drastic sets of regulations. And there hasn't been enough talk. We just got a vague reference to it here. Geithner referencing and saying, well, it's going to be a little bit of a different capital and more responsible, accountable, maybe. But as far as actual regulations, we haven't seen it. The free market does not work. It's not free. It's not really a market. It's a plunder, and it has to be done away with.
Talk about the Democrats and Republicans. You said you're infuriated by the Republican response because they just want tax cuts for the rich. But what about the Democrats? I mean, just now we were playing for you Tim Geithner, the Treasury Secretary, and the approach to this crisis.
Oh, it's insufficient. I mean, that's what's coming out with your questions. It's insufficient. They're not dealing with systemic questions. There's all this debate about the stimulus package. Hardly a word has come out about the Federal Reserve giving away $2.5 trillion, just giving it away unaccountably.
Explain that.
The Federal Reserve just went, while we had this $750 billion stimulus package, which was passed by Congress, the Federal Reserve printed up, it can print up money and create money, and handed out over $2 trillion to the financial community in America, with no accountability, no debate in Congress, and very little notice.
So what's the significance of that?
Well, the significance is that I mean, that's our money. That it becomes real money when it becomes debt, and we've got to pay it. You see, the Republicans were never against debt. They were the biggest debt spenders there ever was. When Ronald Reagan came into office, the national debt was $800 billion. When he left office, it was $2.5 trillion. I mean, it was okay with him to spend. He also put in the biggest tax program that ever was, but it was a regressive tax. It was a Social Security tax on tens of millions of people. When George Bush Sr. came in, the national debt went from 2.5 to 5 trillion. Clinton, I'll give him credit for that one thing. He did try to go for solvency. But when you got to George Bush Jr., for 8 years, the debt has gone from 5 trillion to 10 trillion. And these Republicans were voting for that all along. All these spending bills were theirs. So, so you see, they don't mind debt because debt is really a way of upward distribution. You tax the common people and you give the money to rich creditors. It's a very regressive way of redistributing wealth upward. So debt is fine with them.
I'd like to ask you, given the increasingly global connections of our banks and other multinational corporations, the issue of how you remedy a crisis in one country. For instance, I heard last night on C-SPAN the hearing that Congressman Kucinich had of the bailout. He had an oversight hearing yesterday, and he questioned the Treasury Department over the fact that the bailout money has been going to banks that in some cases are then using the bailout money to invest overseas, a $6 billion investment in Dubai, an $8 billion investment in a company in China, I think by Bank of America.
Right.
So that, and Kucinich was asking, what are we doing giving money to bailing out banks who say they can't lend in the United States, but then they use the money in investments abroad? How do you reconcile the global connections of these companies with the need in one particular country to stem the financial crisis?
Well, I mean, you got to stop these kinds of examples that you're giving, that the money should be spent where it has to be, and the money should come with lots of strings attached to it. And actually, it should be the government making direct investments. The government should go directly into production. It should be the government that's building housing. It should be the government that gives health care. Health care is a perfect example of that, where you health coverage is terrible. So to give everybody health coverage will put us all still fighting these private insurance companies for money and not getting it and such. And the insurance companies get nothing, give nothing, do nothing. They just are told. They just get billions of dollars that comes through and perform nothing. If you had single payer, it would just come right from the government, like Medicare does, or something like the VA hospital, and that would be it. And so with the banks, perhaps we should start nationalizing banks. We should start bringing a closer link between the financial system and what's called, very revealingly called, the real economy, where people still need to work and consume and live, and that might be a way. What do we do internationally? I don't know. You've had some good people on. You'll have to ask them next time.
What do you see as the future of capitalism, Michael Parenti?
I see it as a future in which there's going to be a lot of suffering. I see it, the goal is to have more and more Indonesias and fewer Denmarks and
that
such.
Means?
That means that even in the social democracies in Western Europe, there are going to be cutbacks, there's going to be privatization, deregulation, greater growth of inequities, rollbacks of human services and such. In countries that were pretty decent, countries where capitalism was reined in and held in line to some degree, anyway.
And aside from the brutality of Indonesia, what it means when you say "and more Indonesias"? Well,
Indonesia, I mean, it's a free market paradise. They talk about free market. In Indonesia, there are no consumer protections. There are no regulations. There is no public medical care. There's no public education. People just die younger.
Do you see mass riots happening?
No, well, one thing is that people can become so demoralized and such, and it's a pretty repressive state, so it's not that easy.
Michael Parenti, we want to thank you for being with us. His latest article on the global economic meltdown, Capitalism, Self-Inflicted Apocalypse.
I hope next time I'll have better news for you. We'll have a nicer subject to be discussing.
And that does it for our show. If you want to get a copy, you can go to our website at democracynow.org. Democracy Now! Is produced by Mike Berkshire, photo producer Armata Angelique Comet, Steve Martinez, Nicole Salazar, Hani Massoud, Robbie Karen, Mike DeFilippo, Miguel Noguera, Peter Curries, our engineers. Special thanks also to Elizabeth Press, Nick Gilla, Hugh Grant, Samantha Chamblay, Jessel Noor, John Randolph, Jose Miranda, Laura Chipley, Travis Collins, Kieran Krug Meadows, Rockham Penny, Vesta Godars. Our website, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodnow with Juan Gonzalez. Thanks for joining us.